What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. We continue here with my 2024 predictions for the upcoming 2024 college football season. The Indiana Hoosiers are up next. Looking at this Indiana team last year in 2023, coming off a pretty rough year last year at 3-9. Of course, you know, the coach was fired at the end of this season. My thoughts on this team, though, for 2024, it's a new era for Indiana and also a rebuild for this football program. New head coach and everything. They got the former James Madison coach coming in. So I think the future is looking bright right now for Indiana. You look at the roster, it's not really the most talented rosters in the country, but they added a ton of additions in the transfer portal. So I think that's the reason why Indiana is a little bit underrated heading into 2024. I did put them on my top 10 list of my top 10 most underrated teams heading into the season. So this is not going to be a bad Indiana team. And they also have a schedule that really sets up nicely. So let's now get to that schedule here for 2024. This is the schedule here for Indiana. Again, they were 3-9 last year in 2023. So let's go game by game now and give you a record prediction here for the Hoosiers for 2024. They start off with a couple of easy cupcake games here against FIU on August 31st and then Western Illinois here on September 7th. Those two games should be pretty easy wins here for Indiana, so I think they start off 2-0 here pretty easily with their new coaching staff. So you have a couple of games before you play on the road here at UCLA to open up conference play. You kind of get used to the new coaching staff there after, you know, the first 2 weeks and everything. So we'll see how that works out, and then also get used to the new transfers coming in as well. And then they open up Big Ten play here, like I mentioned, on the road here at UCLA on September 14th. I've already done my UCLA video a couple days ago, and I did choose the Bruins to win this game. You got two first-year head coaches here going at it. Obviously two pretty even teams. You got Deshaun Foster taking over down there. UCLA still has a really good amount of playmakers on their roster, so this might be a pretty even matchup here, but I decided to go with UCLA here just because of the home field advantage, and also Indiana has to go out west in this game. It's going to be a very long travel and everything. It's also a very tough place to play. So I think UCLA gets the win here. I think they give Indiana their first loss here of the season, but I think Indiana bounces back with a win over Charlotte here on September 21st. So I got Indiana actually starting out 3-1. Going into their second Big Ten game, they'll play Maryland here at home on September 28th. Maryland's going to try to really be explosive on the offensive side of the football in this game. They're also not really going to be the same offense as they were in the last 3 years. Not that same explosive offense, but I think they'll still be on good on offense either way. But defensively is where I'm concerned about for the Terrapins. I think Indiana's going to try to run the football in this game and really wear down the Terrapins defense and also really slow this game down. And I think that strategy actually works. I'm going to go with Indiana here, not to pull off the upset, but I think Maryland is definitely the more talented roster, but I think Indiana gets the win here. They come out really motivated after the win over Charlotte and then also get a win here in the Big Ten. So I think they get a big win against Maryland here on September 28th. I think that's a pretty even matchup in my opinion. Again, talent-wise, Maryland is the more talented team here, but I think Indiana comes out really motivated. Again, I think this is a pretty even matchup. So I got Indiana getting the win there to close things out here in the month of September. So that puts them now at 4-1. Going into the month of October, they do play here on the road at Northwestern on October 5th. Northwestern going to have a pretty good defense. The offense might take a step back from where they were the last, like I said, last year and everything. So I think this is a pretty even matchup here as well. You look at Northwestern, again, the defense is going to be really strong for them. They do have a good amount of production coming back on both sides of the football. But I think Indiana's going to score some points in this game. So I think this is a really close game to call. I kind of been back and forth on this game. I think Northwestern, though, playing at home, they do get it done in this one. It's a 50-50 game, close game. It will be a low-scoring type game. And I also think these are two teams that are going to try to run the football and wear down both of their defenses. But I got Northwestern getting the win here, and I got them giving Indiana their second loss here of the season. So that puts Indiana now at 4-2 on the season. And then after that, they get a bye week here before playing Nebraska here on October 19th. Pretty good spot for a bye week here against Nebraska. This is a veteran Nebraska team, going to be really good with their second-year head coach in Matt Rule. But this is a pretty even matchup in my opinion. You got Indiana coming out of a bye week and everything. I don't think it's an even matchup, I should say. I think Nebraska is definitely a more talented team and definitely a more talented roster, but it's one of those games here in the month of October. It's kind of one of those upset alert type games, and plus when I did my Nebraska video and everything, I did choose Indiana to pull off the upset, so that's what I'm going to go with here still. I think Indiana comes out really fired up, and also the bye week does help them out. They get an extra break here before this big game and everything, and plus Nebraska could be ranked in the top 25, so I think Indiana pulls off the upset here. I'm going to say they beat Nebraska here on October 19th, so I got them getting their 5th win of the season already, and that puts their record now here at 5-2. Next game they'll play at home against Washington on October 26th. Two even pretty matchups here. You look at Washington and Indiana, two teams with first-year head coaches and everything. Indiana, though, brought in a ton of transfers. Washington, a completely new roster here. They're not going to be a bad team, but I think this is a pretty even matchup. I was back and forth on this game when I did my Washington video and everything, so with that being said, Indiana playing at home, it's a 50-50 game, a close game. I think Indiana does get the win here, and I got them getting back-to-back wins here in the month of October against Nebraska and Washington. But that's a close game. That's a really close game against Washington. So I got Indiana getting to a bowl game already, and I got them at 6-2 going into the month of November. And then after that, they go into the month of November to play Michigan State here on November 2nd. This is also a Michigan State team with a first-year head coach. Two pretty even rosters here, just like the Washington games and everything, and also just like the UCLA game as well. Michigan State, though, has the home field advantage. I think that might be the difference here. It is a close game, and I've already done my Michigan State video from last Friday, so I think it will be a close game, but I'm going to go with Michigan State here just because of home field advantage. It's a pretty even matchup. I'm going to go with the Spartans here to give Indiana their 3rd loss of the season, and I also think that's a Michigan State team that you probably don't want to play in the month of November, so I got Indiana now falling to 6-3 here on the season. And then after that, there's the big game at home against Michigan here on November 9th. Let's say Michigan State, the Michigan State game was definitely a really big letdown here for Indiana. They were definitely overlooking Michigan State and looking ahead to the big game against Michigan the next week. I think Indiana's going to be pretty fired up for this game. Michigan's not going to be the same team as they were from last year. However, they are still the more talented team here, but it wouldn't really shock me if Indiana was actually competitive in this game for 4 quarters, because I think Indiana might be better by this time, but I think the game's going to go down as this. First half, it will be close, but I think Michigan pulls away in the second half. They find a way to get it done, and I think the Wolverines are definitely the better team here at the end of the day. So I got Indiana losing their 4th game here of the season, so that puts their record now at 6-4 with a loss to Michigan. And then after that, they get their 2nd bye week here before playing Ohio State here on November 23rd. So Indiana gets a little bit of a recovery here after the loss to Michigan. They get beaten up in that game, but they get a bye week here before playing on the road here at Ohio State. But let's be honest, I don't really see this game being all that close. The Buckeyes are going to be really dangerous this year. And a lot of production coming back here for the Buckeyes. They may not be like the most experienced team in the country, but I mean, offensively, they're going to be very explosive. You got Chip Kelly, calling plays and everything, and the defense should be overall pretty solid. And I think Ohio State blows out Indiana here. So this might be the biggest loss here on this schedule here for Indiana, and probably the game where they lose quite a lot and everything. So I got Indiana losing on the road here at Ohio State, and that puts them now at 6-5. And then after that, they close things out here with Purdue at home in the final game of the season on November 30th. Of course, a rivalry game. Anything can happen here in this one. Purdue might be a little bit better this year just because of their 2nd-year head coach, but they still don't really have that talented roster and everything, so the future is still not really looking bright here for the Boilermakers. Coming off a pretty rough year last year, both of these teams are pretty even, coming off pretty rough seasons. This is a rivalry game. Anything can happen. If this game was on the road at Purdue, I would definitely go with the Boilermakers, but Indiana is at home in this game, and I also think they're desperate for a win at this point after 3 losses in a row. 2 games after really tough, games against Michigan and Ohio State. They get a big win here. I think it goes into the 4th quarter, but I think Indiana wins this one. It maybe comes down to a turnover. It also maybe comes down to a game-winning field goal, so you never know. But I got Indiana finishing 7-5 here with their final win of the season against Purdue here on November 30th. So like I said, I think Indiana is a bit underrated heading into 2024, and that's the reason why I got them going into a bowl game this season and also winning 7 games. I think the future is definitely looking bright. They brought in a ton of transfers from the transfer portal to help them out, and plus, this is a schedule that sets up really well. They do have some tough road games. They got Ohio State and UCLA, and they also got Northwestern and Michigan State, which are very winnable games here for Indiana. They don't have to play Penn State. They don't have to play Oregon, two of those other top teams in the Big Ten. So again, they do play Michigan and Ohio State. I know that. Those are going to be very tough games, which I don't think they have a shot to win in. But again, really don't sleep on that Michigan game. I mean, that's a game where Michigan probably can have like a letdown and everything, and Indiana could be better by this time. But again, I got Indiana going 7-5 here in 2024, making it to a bowl game with their first-year head coach. We'll see what the future looks like after this season and everything. So give me your thoughts on this Indiana team down in the comments below. What do you think their record will be for 2024? Again, 7-5 is my prediction here for this Indiana football team. And stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports channel.